A deafening silence swept through the towering glass headquarters the moment the elegant CEO abandoned the stage, ignored hundreds of stunned executives, and sprinted across the polished marble floor toward a man standing quietly near the entrance with a worn travel bag in one hand and a little girl holding the other. Before security could react, the powerful CEO threw her arms around the exhausted single father, tears streaming down her face as she whispered words no one expected to hear. Every employee froze. Cameras stopped recording. The board members exchanged confused glances. The richest woman in the company had just embraced a man everyone assumed was an ordinary traveler returning from France, but the truth behind that embrace would shake every life inside that building. If you believe kindness can change lives, forgiveness can heal broken hearts, hope is always worth holding on to, and second chances can create miracles, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing inspiring stories like this one. Garrett Holloway never imagined that coming home would become the most unforgettable day of his life. His clothes were simple, his shoes were worn from months of walking unfamiliar European streets, and the only expensive thing he carried was the tiny smile of his 6-year-old daughter, Eliza. To strangers they looked like any father and child returning from a difficult trip, but behind Garrett's tired eyes rested years of sacrifice, heartbreak, and silent determination that no one around him could possibly understand. Only 4 years earlier, Garrett had lived a peaceful suburban life with his wife, Meredith, whose laughter seemed capable of brightening even the darkest afternoons. Their daughter had inherited her mother's joyful spirit, filling every room with endless curiosity and innocent questions. Then, without warning, everything changed. Meredith was diagnosed with an aggressive illness that progressed far faster than anyone expected. Garrett sold his motorcycle, emptied their savings, worked 2 jobs, and spent every free moment by her hospital bed, believing love alone could defeat fate. It couldn't. When Meredith passed away, Garrett stood in the hospital hallway holding his sleeping daughter while trying not to collapse beneath the unbearable weight of grief. He promised his wife that no matter how difficult life became, Eliza would always know she was deeply loved. The following years tested that promise every single day. Bills piled up faster than paychecks arrived. Friends slowly disappeared, uncertain how to comfort someone carrying so much sorrow. Garrett worked construction during the mornings, delivered packages in the afternoons, and repaired furniture at night while Eliza completed homework beside him in their tiny apartment. He never complained because every exhausted smile from his daughter reminded him that giving up simply wasn't an option. One rainy afternoon an unexpected letter arrived. Years earlier Garrett had applied for a prestigious woodworking fellowship in France but never believed he would be selected. The acceptance letter had been delayed because of administrative complications. Now, against all odds, the opportunity had finally arrived. The fellowship included housing, professional training, and a generous stipend that could completely transform their future. Leaving home terrified him. Taking Eliza to another country frightened him even more. But staying guaranteed years of financial struggle. So they boarded a plane together. France welcomed them with unfamiliar streets, a different language, and countless obstacles. Garrett often misunderstood directions, struggled with paperwork, and spent lonely evenings wondering whether he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Yet every morning he woke before sunrise, studied traditional craftsmanship, learned advanced restoration techniques, and poured every ounce of determination into becoming the finest artisan he could possibly be. Eliza adapted in remarkable ways. She learned simple French phrases, made friends at a neighborhood school, and constantly reminded her father that adventures were supposed to feel scary sometimes. Their small apartment overlooked a narrow street lined with flower boxes and tiny cafes. It wasn't luxurious, but laughter slowly returned to their lives. Garrett rediscovered confidence that grief had stolen years earlier. He wasn't simply surviving anymore. He was building something worthy of the promise he had made to Meredith. During those months abroad, Garrett unknowingly crossed paths with someone whose life had once been connected to his own in ways he had nearly forgotten. Years before tragedy struck, Garrett had volunteered every Saturday restoring furniture for a non-profit community center. One nervous college student often visited that workshop searching for discarded wood to complete design projects because she couldn't afford expensive materials. Her name was Celeste Rowan. Garrett never considered himself extraordinary. He simply believed everyone deserved encouragement. He patiently taught Celeste woodworking basics, helped repair broken tools, shared leftover supplies, and repeatedly reminded her that talent mattered more than wealth. When she nearly abandoned college because tuition became impossible, Garrett quietly organized donations from local craftsmen without ever taking credit. Life carried them in different directions. Garrett focused on family. Celeste entered the business world. Neither expected to meet again. Over the next decade, Celeste transformed a struggling furniture company into one of the largest sustainable luxury brands in Europe and North America. Newspapers praised her brilliant leadership. Investors admired her courage. Employees respected her compassion because she never forgot the difficult years that shaped her character. Yet she never forgot Garrett either. She often described an unnamed mentor whose simple kindness convinced her that impossible dreams deserved chasing. She searched for him many times. She never found him. Until one ordinary afternoon in Paris. While visiting a restoration exhibition organized by fellowship graduates, Celeste noticed a familiar posture across the crowded hall. The man looked older, more tired, and carried invisible scars that hadn't existed years before. But she recognized the kindness in his eyes instantly. Garrett didn't recognize her. She introduced herself. The conversation lasted less than 15 minutes, but it changed everything. As Garrett casually mentioned returning home after completing the fellowship, Celeste realized the man responsible for inspiring her greatest achievements was still struggling to provide for his daughter despite dedicating his life to helping others. She made a quiet decision. Without revealing her identity as CEO during that brief meeting, she instructed her executive team to prepare something extraordinary. Weeks later, Garrett and Eliza returned home believing they would simply unpack, search for work, and begin another chapter of ordinary life. Instead, they received an invitation asking Garrett to attend the headquarters of Rowan Living International regarding an employment opportunity connected to his fellowship. He almost declined. He owned only one decent suit. He worried childcare arrangements would fail. He assumed hundreds of more qualified candidates would compete for the same position. Eliza insisted they go anyway. She reminded him that brave people sometimes walked through doors before knowing what waited on the other side. so they arrived together. The enormous headquarters overwhelmed Garrett immediately. Elegant architecture stretched toward the bright afternoon sky. Employees hurried through gleaming corridors carrying tablets and portfolios. Luxury cars filled the entrance while television crews prepared to cover the company's annual leadership celebration. Garrett quietly waited near reception. No one realized the guest standing beside a little girl had unknowingly shaped the company's entire future. Then Celeste walked onto the stage. She began thanking employees for another successful year, speaking about integrity, generosity, and remembering those who lift others without expecting rewards. Suddenly her eyes found Garrett. She stopped speaking. The microphone slipped slightly from her hand. Without another word she climbed down from the stage and ran. The embrace left everyone speechless. Executives who had negotiated billion-dollar contracts watched their fearless CEO cry openly in front of employees. Garrett stood frozen, unable to understand why one of the world's most respected business leaders held him so tightly. Only after composing herself did Celeste explain. She told every person in that grand lobby that years earlier, before success, before recognition, before magazine covers and international awards, she had nearly abandoned her dreams. One humble craftsman refused to let her quit. He had shared knowledge freely, encouraged her when she doubted herself, and reminded her that character would always outlast circumstances. He had changed her life without asking for anything in return. Now she finally had the opportunity to repay that kindness. Silence filled the building. Many executives lowered their eyes. Some quietly wiped away tears. Garrett wasn't remembered because he had become wealthy. He was remembered because he had chosen compassion when no one was watching. Celeste then surprised him again. She announced that Garrett would become Director of Heritage Craftsmanship, leading a new division dedicated to preserving traditional artisan skills while mentoring young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. The position included an excellent salary, healthcare, educational support for Eliza, and complete creative freedom to build programs helping struggling families discover meaningful careers. Garrett couldn't speak. Years of disappointment had taught him never to expect miracles. yet one stood before him. Eliza wrapped her small arms around her father's hand and smiled with quiet pride. For the first time since losing Meredith, Garrett felt the crushing weight inside his heart begin to lift. Months passed. Garrett transformed abandoned workshops into vibrant learning spaces where veterans, single parents, recent graduates, and unemployed workers learned practical skills while rebuilding confidence. Every handcrafted table, chair, and cabinet represented more than craftsmanship. Each piece carried stories of resilience, healing, and hope. Employees throughout the company noticed something remarkable. Garrett greeted janitors with the same respect he offered executives. He remembered birthdays. He encouraged interns. He thanked receptionists by name. His leadership wasn't built on authority. It was built on humanity. Celeste often watched quietly from a distance, smiling as she witnessed the same generous spirit that had inspired her years earlier now transforming hundreds of additional lives. One afternoon Garrett visited the community center where everything had begun. The old workshop still stood. Dust-covered forgotten benches. Sunlight streamed through familiar windows. He placed his hand on the weathered work table where he had once encouraged a frightened college student chasing impossible dreams. Beside him stood Eliza. She asked whether helping people had always been worth it even when nobody noticed. Garrett looked around the quiet room before answering with gentle certainty inside his heart. Kindness is never wasted. Sometimes its greatest reward arrives years later in ways no one could ever predict. Sometimes the people we quietly encourage become the very people who one day help carry us through our darkest seasons. As father and daughter stepped back into the bright afternoon sunshine, Garrett realized he hadn't simply returned from France with new professional skills. He had returned carrying renewed faith in people, renewed belief in hope, and proof that even the smallest acts of generosity can echo across countless lives. Before this story comes to an end, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment sharing the greatest act of kindness someone has ever shown you, or tell us how you try to bring hope into someone else's life. Your words may become the encouragement another viewer needs today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Garrett walked into that magnificent building believing he was simply another tired single father searching for honest work. He walked out carrying something far greater than a career. He carried the comforting truth that genuine kindness never disappears, even when years pass in silence. Every sacrifice he had made for his daughter, every stranger he had helped without expecting recognition, and every moment he had chosen compassion over convenience had quietly planted seeds that finally blossomed into hope. And as Garrett and Eliza stepped forward into the warm daylight hand in hand, surrounded not by wealth but by love, gratitude, and new beginnings, they discovered that the greatest success in life is not measured by money or titles, but by the lives forever changed because someone chose to care when it mattered most.